We have a lap followed by the pace car to start off. 16 laps around and here in Jerez, with only 15 of those being full racing laps. And here we go. This is it. They head down the hill into the final turn around Jerez. And we are underway for the preseason test in the ERL INDYCAR series. That's one of the Sims cars on the second lap of 16, trying to make a move. That's Mika from Poland, heading down into turn number 1. Carson Thornburg also trying to make a move. Not quite able to do it is Mika, but Thornburg takes the lead in the preseason test already. Brilliant move off the line. That is quite the move, and you're likely to see a lot more of those as the season unfolds. You can see Mickey Ungurovic defending from Kamno on board with the Romanian, trying to go around the outside of Gurovic, not quite able to do it. And in fact, that is the man under the neutral flag, fighting his way up into the points with Quee right in front of him, the Dutchman in the 99. And A.G.E setting a track limits warning. Get 4 of those and it's a slam dunk 5-second time penalty. Little Buns making some moves as well. Francis Austin looking behind with the McLaren man down to 11th, but Carson Thornburg leading in the preseason test ahead of Ewa Puff. And it's the same for the graphics as Tommy drops down to 6th position, and if he's not careful, 7th will go as well. Here comes Gurovic going around the outside, and he's not quite able to do it. In fact, Tommy getting himself up into 5th position. This is the man from Hong Kong, using all the experience he's had ever since joining the ERL Formula E Series in Season 14. He got put into the American Series of INDYCAR, and he's dropped down to 6th position. Quee up into 5th. The hyperdrive driver, he's been there for the longest time, and he hasn't ever had the opportunity to move up into the Formula E seat. Ericsson fighting with Kamino in that Power Motorsports car. Here we go on board with the Target Power driver alongside Ericsson heading up the hill. Still side by side, Romania versus Sweden, as you've got the Spanish Carlos Sainz right behind him. And that is push-to-pass available for everyone there. It's like an entire bargain sale as they head through turn number 10. And Kynes stays in 13th, Kamino stays 12th, and Ericsson stays 11th. Little Buns currently in 10th for Newman Haas Racing, doing what he can do to just try and get anything out of that car. But he's a second, 2 seconds ahead of the American behind him, is Puff. So I think the Scottish driver is going to have a pretty good shot in this series. And in fact, I would argue with the type of performance he and his team are doing right now, I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't already considered for an ERL drive. The top 4 drivers have all been considered and have all had an ERL drive, with the one being off the grid the longest so far being Carlos Sainz, who finally peels into the pits. He did 8 laps on those mediums, and in fact Olsen also in for Hyperdrive Racing. 7 laps to go, and Tommy leads from Kamino and Ewa Puff in Abuja, so there's still precedent for him to do well. Look at that from Milsos, trying to defend from Francis Austin, heading up the hill. Push to pass active for Francis, heading down into turn 10. Trying not to crash into the Polish driver in front of him. Tries to go around the outside, not quite able to do so. So he'll have to stay behind him for a while. Kamino comes in. Tommy stays out with 6 to go. Puff leads Thornburg and Davis, but still Ewa doing what he can. And I'm not too sure if what he can is going to be enough. Little Bun setting a new fastest lap, 104.466. Took a while to get a new fastest lap, but of course had to come from the Newman Haas man. It would be so much better, but instead we have Thornburg domination. And it might be here to stay as Ghosted comes into the pits for a second stop. Olsen on the back of Axel Mark as they head into turn number 1. This is the fight for 12th position. There goes the Norwegian, taking 12th away. Colby looking at that, taking notes and thinking, yeah, I can do that too. But he's not quite close enough to do it yet. And with Kamino, Tommy, look at that from Tommy. What a lunge from the Hong Kong man to get past the 2 red cars in front of him. and get himself up into 15th. Goes down the inside on Niven Colby as well. That is quite the move from a man who can pretty much say that he's a veteran of the ERL. But if he's a veteran, what does that make guys like Revo and U-Cable in the ERL Formula E series? Does that make them unks or something like that? I don't know. I don't use Gen Z terminology. And with 2 laps to go, look at the state of those mediums. There's certainly going to be drivers who are going to be trying to do one-stop strategies once we get to race day and everything in St. Pete. But there's no way that they're going to have to last this long. 42% tire wear on the mediums, so you theoretically will make it to the end. The question is, would you want to make it to the end with those tires looking as they do? But he does have an 11-second lead, even if he has a puncture. It's going to befall Lil Buns first, as he's on 26% tire wear. He needs to pit. Buns must pit soon, or else he's going to risk a puncture. I don't think his tires will puncture. They might puncture by the end of the race, actually, because this is the penultimate lap. 23% tire wear. If Buns doesn't pit at the end of this lap, his tires will puncture by the time we start lap 16. Once he exits turn number 2, I can predict this right now. If Buns doesn't pit, that is going to be all 4 of his tires going pop. And you know what? They did quite a good job at it. 12%, 11% for the Newman Haas man. He's certainly not dropping pace, however. 9%. He lost 2% through that entire turn. Fastest first sector going to Ewa Puff in 9th position. Ewa Puff, I swear to God. But coming through the final sector, 23%. 5% for Lil Buns. His tires will pop soon. It's going to be Carson Thornburg as Sebastian Messian further back, getting a penalty for track limits. He's got a puncture. Messian with a puncture. And I think Buns might have one too, as Thornburg comes across the line and takes the preseason test. And that's a puncture. All of the tires for Buns go up in smoke. Where is Gurovich? There goes Gurovich on the line. Here comes Tommy. There goes Tommy. My goodness me. At the very end, so many tire issues with the Firestones. Honestly, at the end of a race like this, my goodness. And A.G.E getting a time penalty for causing a collision with Messian, whose tires, they've seen better days. They surely have. Whatever those are. Not too sure why we have a podium here. And just like the early days of the ERL, standardized suits, and unlike the early days of the ERL, standardized helmets as well, where you're only allowed to change the color just because it makes it easier. But it is Carson Thornburg who takes the preseason test from Lewis Olsen and Linus Eriksson, the Swede, coming across the line in 3rd, making it a 2-3 for Viking drivers. Then it's Mikoyan Gurovich for Dragon Penske, Lil Buns, Quan Todoroki, David Kamino, David Borkar, Max Borkar rather, Ghosted, and Niven Colby, the top 10. Outside of it, you've got the 2 Revolution drivers of Hexel, Mark and Tommy, Francis Austin, TJ Davis, Saf San, Ewa Puff, Salas Kynes, Oakwe, Elliot Deli, Milstios, Micah, Enoch Yu, and Sebastian Messian. It's been quite the preseason test. We will see you guys next time then for the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg when the ERL INDYCAR series returns.